Okay. All right, we're live. Good afternoon, Tali. Even though it's
Thank
evening
you.
here, but
Good
it's afternoon,
evening,
right?
Kay. That's right.
Yeah, it is Thursday. Yes, it's Thursday. Okay. How are things going with you?
Things are going pretty good. I apologize that I was a couple minutes late. Everyone can blame me for it today exclusively. Usually it's a little bit of blame to go around, but yeah, I'm doing okay. How are you doing today?
I am good. We had an ice storm yesterday, so that was I don't know. It was like a day stuck at home, kind of like right after March break, so it wasn't like the most ideal.
And the kids were at home too.
Yeah, everybody was at home. No, you couldn't go anywhere. Like
that's rough.
Kind of like the whole city kind of just like decided to stay in, which is probably, a good idea. But it just the week after March break, I was very happy for them to like go and be at school and get stuff done. But yeah, I think winter's having one more hurrah before it's like on the way out.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. The days are getting longer. That's all I care about.
That's good. The little things you got to chase. Yeah, it's been, I think I overslept today because it's been rainy. They were calling for like a big storm here, but I never trust big weather. The weather forecasts here are just like predictably unpredictable, and like everyone works themselves up over like storm warnings, and it's typically nowhere near as bad as they predict. So yeah, I've gotten notifications about like flash floods and stuff, but like everything has pretty much remained open and functional here.
Oh, that's good. I guess like different type of like weather emergencies arising there.
Exactly.
They do it here too, like for the snow. It seems like all the time.
Yeah, and I really do feel like it's like Hawaii in particular where the weather forecast means basically nothing. I never had this feeling like growing up in New York that things were going to be so off.
Catastrophic.
But anyway, yeah, exactly. Off of the super interesting topic of the weather.
Yeah.
So in our last conversation, we left off. We both sort of wanted to talk a little bit about the Destiny versus Hutch conversation, and that sort of like meta topic, and maybe all the reaction conversations that have happened since then. Is there anything else that you also wanted to touch on today?
I think there may have been, but like I think it probably will tie. I think maybe we can tie it into that. Nothing specifically is coming to mind.
Okay. Yeah.
What about you? Is there anything else?
No. I think, like you said, also like within that conversation, I have a few points or whatever that have been floating around in my head, and I might want to talk, depending on where this conversation goes and how much time we have left. I might want to have a conversation about like Zionism and anti-Zionism, but not to always shoehorn the conversation into my favorite topic. But yeah, those are the only things on my mind right now.
Yes, I have not heard all of the news, but I heard some newsy stuff about bombings and synagogues and attacks and this sort of thing. So yeah, that's always I don't know. These topics keep popping up over and over again.
Yeah.
So
I just remembered what sparked this conversation for me, or the idea to have this conversation was I watched the Tim Miller and Sagar and Jetty interview that was on the Bulwark.
Okay.
I watched it on Hutch's stream today, and it pissed me off quite a bit. So these thoughts are sort of in reaction to that.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see that, but I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So the Destiny Hutch kind of and Connor, Destiny spoke to Connor also kind of like along the same lines. Did you hear? Did you listen to the whole thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What are your like inclinations on it? Where do you want to start?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway for me, well, okay, there seems to be like two overarching themes or points maybe that I see coming out of like that side of the debate. And I think they both have major issues, but one is essentially revenge. I think now I should walk it back for a second and say I think all of these things are premised on the idea that they obviously believe that the Republicans and Trump in particular, but they're really the Republicans in general. And now even Destiny has been saying like this is the fault of the Republican Party for 40 years now and stuff like that, sort of stretching it out. So this is all on the premise that they believe that there's an existential threat to American liberal democracy. So I have to like put it in the scope of how emergent or urgent they think these things are. But the themes that I'm seeing are essentially revenge. And then how can we make sure this never happens again? And I put this in air quotes because pretty explicitly a lot of them, and by them I mean people callers who have called into chat to have this conversation and extend it out too, not have this happen again doesn't seem to mean like don't allow these particular constitutionally challenging events to occur again. It seems to mean don't allow conservatives or Republicans to ever have power again. They talk about this in the context of like, basically how can we make sure that conservatives will never win again, that Republicans will never win again? How can we ensure that Democrats will control the Senate and the White House for basically ever to come? And I mean the problems with that the latter part there are like that's just like anti-democratic, really. I think it's frustrating to someone like me who also sees a lot of issues on both sides, that it seems like this is it is just again so partisan, right? And I think without really regard for how the other side could use that against them. Yeah. And then with the part about, sorry, I coughed and I don't want to on the hot mic, but I'll stop in 1 second. With the revenge part, that part is the part to me that annoys me the most, because the extremists or the people on the right, who I'm also very frustrated with, are just saying the exact same thing. And it's so obvious that neither side is going to take persecution, for lack of better terms, from the other side as like a lesson in how they ought to behave moving forward. Like, and both sides really seem to believe it. And it just, to me, it strikes me as so out of touch about like human motivation, even on like some level, like human psychology, just like, not understanding how like these specific actors might react, and then, the electorate too. So the conversation is crazy making to me, because I don't see how it seems very short-sighted. And again, it just not to do the whole both sides thing, but really what strikes me the most from listening to these conversations is that they sound exactly like Megyn Kelly and some of these people who were saying, fuck it, I don't care, it needs to hurt. The Democrats and the Republicans, the ones that I'm talking about, the crazies on sort of both of these sides from these partisan groups, believe that the other side has already gone beyond reproach, and that the only way for your side to ever be successful is if we stop playing by their rules. This is like literally this is what both sides think.
That's like the Trump playbook. Yes. He's coming in. It's already corrupt. I'm coming in to fix it. We're doing all of these things that may be on the verge because of all the corruption that has already happened. I agree with you 100%. And I think that there's this like idea of, I don't know, there's just like defending or protecting democracy because like you fear what's on the other side of it. It seems like creating like a very fragile system as opposed to like defending democracy because people have like they value it, like inherently they think it's a good thing and they want to protect it because they see all of the things that have come from it. I see that probably as like creating more resilience in the systems and the institutions, and like people right now are so at odds and they're so low trust in institutions and in people amongst each other as well, that no wonder that things kind of feel like they're on the brink, if you will. And I don't think that mobilizing people around punishment or revenge maybe it gives you a short-term win, but like you really risk destroying like the shared kind of like investment in democracy that democracy depends on in order to succeed.
Yeah, and it to me it's also like, and we're talking about the left again. I feel like I always need to like, throat clear a little bit here that I see all these issues on the right also, but we're talking about the left in this conversation in the context of liberals. But it just makes them seem really out of touch. And I think Zero Fuck said something to that effect in the chat. Yeah, playing these stupid vengeance games is a game for the upper class. Regular people just want their candidates to make their lives better. I think that's true. And again, it just strikes me as like, a like some of these people are sitting there and like putting their fingers in their ears and closing their eyes and saying like nanny nanny poo poo. Like, okay, your big play is to prosecute Trump and all of the people in his admin. Yeah. Didn't we see like didn't the polls for Trump like literally like you can see it on a map of like when his fucking not on a map, sorry, on a graph. You can see on a graph, like the point in time that his mugshots were released. Like it obviously did not have the desired outcome. And so if you're going to put on top of that, not just Trump, where there were maybe some of these crime, whatever could be prosecutable, but cuticle. Sorry guys, I just woke up. But then like, a la Rashad Crenshaw's, prescription of like we should throw the Fox News on air talent in jail. Like it's just I don't think it seems really disconnected from the normal median voter. And so I think the whole conversation is really crazy making.
Yeah, and I think Destiny frames it as like needing to create like the appetite for people to want that, but I think that just sounds like, I don't know, like further radicalizing the Democrats and those who are on the left or like, slightly left of the center to want that. And I don't see that making the country, like any better. Or cooling things down, and like this whole thing on punishment that's just and the risk of it failing is really big. I think you risk like the backlash if the calculation's wrong.
I think especially after Trump 2, when he's not going to be eligible for a third a third run. I think like there was some logic, the specifics of the cases that were prosecuted against Trump in between his two terms, like putting that aside. I understand the logic there a little more, which was like to prevent him from being able to go on the ballot again. Now, again, arguably, there's something sort of undemocratic about that. I don't know. Like the spirit of democracy, there's something undemocratic about that, right? Because you're saying like, I don't even, you're not saying I want to convince the majority of the country to vote against Donald Trump. You're saying I want to take away that option because I think basically some of these people, are just too stupid or whatever to make the right decision. That's another thing.
Yeah.
There's so much arrogance here that the American public is too damn dumb, that we need to convince them, that they are stupid, that they're making the wrong decision. And if not, then we need to take that decision away from them. But at least there was some more logic when it was like preventing him from running for this second term, which didn't work, right? They should also maybe take note of that, the effect that it actually had. But it seems like there would even be less appetite for this after Trump too, right? When I think a lot of people are just going to want to move on, just get past this like Trump moment in politics. A lot of people on the right are going to just want to move on too, there are people on the right who are going to take a deep breath when Trump is out of politics, even though it's not necessarily going to be a much better or nicer or, congenial political environment. Like people do want to get past this chapter. And so I don't really know what the appetite is going to be like for that. And I think, this is something that Hutch has talked about just in the context of like democratic priorities. And he has argued with his chat about like, if something is very unpopular, there's this belief among the liberals and lefties that that Dems need to message better, right? They believe that all of their issues are messaging issues, right? And so, you just got to message better. And that's what they're saying about this too, is, well, we got to message to the American people that it would be important to throw all of these people into jail, we need to educate the American public about these things. And again, even if there's like, some of the frustration I understand, like the people like Destiny who put some blame on like Merrick Garland, right? For and on the government for not prosecuting and taking some of these options to sort of mitigate Trump's power earlier on. But like that ship has sailed.
Yeah. There's something about this whole like just message better that's just like, well, we haven't found the right manipulation yet. Do you know what I mean? Like we haven't found the right angle yet. They'll come around once they see it. And sometimes people just don't want what you're selling, That's kind of like how democracies work, for better or worse.
Right.
Yeah. And and if people feel like I don't know, if they constantly feel like manipulated and lied to, then they stop trusting the the institutions and the people running them. And I don't see I definitely don't see like Destiny's like tactic or you know what I mean, ideas here working. If like it was an actual, maybe if I saw the crisis to the same degree, to the same level that he did, there could be something there. But it's so far from, like, his assessment is so off to me that it really doesn't make much sense. And I still think Hutch is closer to like a better plan, even if I don't agree with his assessment to like the threat level either. At least like the risk of being wrong, it like, okay, so you're going to try really hard to win elections and do things within the bounds of the law. Okay, like there's not much, I don't know, there's not much risk there,
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think like I appreciate Hutch and IRI too in this moment pushing back. And like all of this to say, obviously, I'm in my early 30s, so I'm limited in what I've seen of the world and of politics. But the panic does seem to have like a very short short-sightedness about it, right? And like, and that's again where I think is just like some of the most egregious parts of these conversations, is Destiny saying like, no, yeah, things are at total 5-alarm fire right now, such that I will have to move and abandon. They are unironically like doing this celebrity thing from 2016 of like, if Trump wins, I'm leaving the country, right? Like I'm moving to Canada or I'm moving to Mexico. They are unironically doing that thing again, which is weird, especially again, since like Trump can't run again. And I know that it's not going to just end with Trump. And Trump, I think maybe people feel that I'm not like harsh enough against Trump sometimes or whatever, but I do like blame Trump and Trumpism for like so much that is wrong and broken with our politics today. Like I too wish that he was never on the political scene. I wish that we never had to deal with the introduction of Trump and the sort of faux populism. And I'm glad that it's faux, because I don't think he's a populist, right? But the faux populism that it's stirred up. And I think he is not ground zero, but like he gave energy to the conspiracism that has just fucking gone through the roof and all of this. So I think Trump has done like really significant, serious damage, and the Trump movement has done significant damage to our country. But it's still obviously America is still today the best place to be, you know, with some exceptions of other, you know, very high functioning, you know, Western countries. It's still the best place to be, literally, and it's the best place to be an illegal immigrant, frankly, still, like, even if that means that you're like on the run from ICE or whatever, you know, looking over your shoulder. It's the best place to be a woman. It's the best place to be a minority. So it just feels so disconnected from reality. And I think that's going to be hard to rally people around too, especially like, again, they're going to just come off as like the rich streamer. They are more and more like that celebrity archetype, you know? Yeah.
And I mean, you also have to think that like, yes, like Trump and the rhetoric and the way he talks and does things like has definitely contributed to like polarization and those things, but like things were not in a good place for somebody like Trump to come in and to capture people and to, do you know what I mean, to capture that many, that such a huge base, do you know what I mean, that was so kind of taken by him. Things were fucked for that to be effective. Like healthy, happy populations who value, you know what I mean, their country, the government, and the politics generally don't, I don't know, like go in that direction, right? So those things had been like for years, and it was not just the left, you know what I mean, had a lot of like, had been doing a lot of America bad for a really long time, but the right also had been like chipping away like certain types of institutions, and things were captured by the elites, and you can't trust anybody for a long time too. So you have it on either side, you know, like the left doesn't trust one aspect of the country and the right doesn't trust the other aspect of the country. And then you get somebody like Trump in and it kind of blows everything apart. And those things become much more, you know, it's almost like the rational middle disappears.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know. I just think like they are really selling doomerism like that. I don't really see how these conversations are not the ultimate black pill. And I think too, it's just there's something childish about it. And again, like this applies to people on the right. The right is full of toddlers that are screaming also. But there's something very childish about this behavior of like, I don't like it, and so we need to make it stop. Sorry. And what I appreciate that Hutch keeps saying is that like this has been baked in when the voters voted for Donald Trump in November of 2024, it's baked in that he gets 4 years, guys. Like this is the will of the people, even if we don't like it. And it seems like pretty transparently, some people like Destiny are essentially trying to stop him from even carrying out the rest of his term. And yeah, there's something childish. It feels like a inability or an unwillingness to just like reckon with reality, to deal with,
Yes. It's like, this is so bad. We have to make sure it never, ever, ever happens again. Even though you can't do that. Like, there are so many variables in the future, because it's the fucking future, that you can't even account for it, because like it's
even worse, Kay.
Right? Like but it makes it, but it's almost like a fool's errand. And this is not to say you can't try to like develop political strategies to move into the future. Okay. But like the idea that we can prevent this from happening ever again by doing this, that's that order is far too tall to fill. And it doesn't make any sense to go after that.
It's also, there's a Mountain Valley in here too. You think the order is tall of we can never let this happen again. By this, they mean elect Republicans. They literally do. They're saying it literally. How can we stop Republicans from getting into power again? That is their goal too. It's a step beyond just like, how do we make sure Trump himself or another Trump-like figure, or how do we make these ideas unpopular? They are explicitly saying, how do we make sure that conservatives don't get power again?
Yes, because they're saying that everybody, well, all the current conservatives and everybody in the party and everyone affiliated with it are like,
it's all guilt by association. Anyone who didn't, yes. And again, that too,
and that's why everybody has to pay, because they all have to go to jail or lose everything or be investigated, and the process is the punishment, and on and on and on. And that's just like, I don't see that being. I can't see how that would work. I just like, you just imagine it playing out, and it seems like, awful. Like you think things are bad now. Can you imagine if I don't know, there's a Democrat in 2028, and then they just go after every Republican who had anything to do within the last like 8 or 12 or whatever fucking amount of years,
right?
Everybody who's remotely, I don't know, on the right is gonna lose their mind.
Yeah, well, and it reminds me of, right. You are disenfranchising, in the most literal sense, like nearly half the country, or at least like a third of the country, when they talk like this. And again, they're just saying it openly, which to me is not that different from the sort of like natcons on the right who are, talk about denaturalizing and deporting basically leftists, that they don't like. But yeah, they are literally talking about disenfranchising, taking away the vote, or essentially taking away the vote of a third to a half of the country. And it reminds me of the conversation that, like, when the sort of real Republicans, which I cringe tremendously at that name that they were kind of working out of, like the North and Connor and them. The biggest issue that I had with it at that time, that I remember talking to North about, is like, if you make the whole thing about how terrible Trump is and was, you're not going to interest people on the right, because sure, there's the people who love Trump, and maybe those people are not the ones that you're so focused on, but there are people who just like are still partisan Republicans, who like are who are directionally with Trump, even if they dislike a lot of things about him. And you can't afford to alienate all of those people. And there's also like, like some people join the administration. It is they want to paint everyone who's ever been associated with Trump, or who hasn't like denounced him enough, to face they want them to face, if not legal repercussions, they want them to face political repercussions, but they don't want the political repercussions to be up to the voters.
No. Okay. Yeah. They want to be the judge, jury, executioner.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But it feels like it's just like a very like emotionally driven you know what I mean? It feels like just like very I want what I want because I want it and I want it now. Let's do it because it will feel good. Not because this is good for the future. It's just like I need this to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what it's going to do to the country or for the future or, you know, like whatever down the line, who cares? You know, this will help me reconcile what has happened and I'll be able to like, you know what I mean? Feel better about the country again.
Yeah.
Even if it's like way more damaging than it would be otherwise. And I think like the harder work is like trying to, you know, the hard work is trying to like bring both sides closer together and not hate each other as much. And that's like really hard, and so hard that it might be impossible in some ways. Not like for to make it for everybody, but I don't know how you fix the trust in the institutions and the democracy if you don't improve like the social cohesion and like have a higher trust society. Like just it won't work. And it's just like that's not how human brains work. Like you could fight it all you want, but humans are going to human. And this is like kind of what I keep coming back to when I look at all of the shit. Like, yes, the incentives and all this come into it, but like people are just going to people, you know?
Oh, sorry. My phone just randomly started playing YouTube. Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm always like glazing Hutch. I'm always literally afraid to even talk positively about Hutch because I feel like I ruin his effectiveness in left-wing spaces if like people on the right, the evil people on the right agree with Hutch. But luckily I don't think he really cares. But this is why I really appreciate Hutch saying like calling these people's bluff to a certain extent. He's like, you know, I hope for all the people who are saying this, I hope you guys are like, you know, packing an Armageddon bag, you know, and I hope you have a bunker and I hope you guys are working on your aim, right? Because if this is actually it, if we are actually just at the steps right before civil war, then fuck it, right? If voting our way out of it, everyone hates that Hutch says we got to voting our way out of it, it's not going to do it, then why haven't you already started? You know, like take a preemptive strike here. And so I appreciate him calling their bluff on that. And Hutch said, I think today or yesterday in his stream, he said what I said in our conversation with Connor, which is the number one pressing issue in this country is political polarization. Like that is, and just how negatively polarized we are from each other. And the problem is, since the people who are making this argument don't agree that that's the biggest problem, they are very happy to just pour gasoline. They are making that problem worse. So if that is the actual problem, if the problem is not lawlessness and insecure institutions, right? Because this is sort of their claim is that it's so crazy, actually. Sorry, I'm getting worked up now, but they are just doing the right-wing thing of liberalism stopped working. Like they are unironically Sargon of Akkad right now, moving away from like the reasonable classical liberal perspective into a post-liberal one. And they're a little more, actually they're less clever maybe, because they're not saying like we need to abandon it. They're saying we need to temporarily abandon it, right? We need to fuck liberalism to save liberalism. Yeah. But yeah, they are doing the exact same thing as the people who are like that they are really concerned about, on the right.
Yeah.
And so that pisses me off. But assuming that this sort of negative hyperpolarization is the issue with our country, then they are just making it just a million times worse. Oh my God, my words today, guys. Sorry.
But they're right, Tali. So it's different for them because they're the good side.
True.
Right.
Which again,
And
unironically,
they just care about I don't know, themselves and Jesus, but they care about all of the people and want good things for everybody. But you know what I mean? Like that's kind of like how it comes across,
no, totally. And they and again, they don't see how this is exactly what the people on the right think about them.
Yes.
That like, well,
and that's why they accept Trump doing what he's doing, because they want him to come in and like fuck everything up, because they think that, things have been kind of like corrupt and the elites and all this shit. The whole narrative on that side, right? So drain the swamp bullshit. Yeah.
And both sides who are using this rhetoric believe that it's okay for them to use it because they are correct morally and factually, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So it's like when saving democracy is actually the thing that like completely destroys the democracy.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what it looks like, Like maybe you have to, like, maybe you shouldn't be sure that you're saving it. I don't know. Like I don't know if you get to go outside of the rules to save democracy. Like maybe that's just like the fucking thing, the nail in the coffin that kills it,
Yeah, or like to Hutch's point, like if there's ever a time where you get to sacrifice democracy to save it, or sacrifice liberalism to save it, like it really needs to be like the last possible option, right? Like that it needs to have gotten so bad where that essentially is the only option.
And they talk about it in this, like, the hero and the anti-hero, and like, I don't know, I've heard them like talk about this in terms of like storylines and whatever. But I'm like, I don't know, if the anti-hero has to like go outside the bounds of like what is good to save the thing, the anti-hero doesn't get to keep the thing. He has to deliver the thing to the person who stayed noble. Like they don't get to then keep it. They can break the rule to give it to somebody who stayed like true, if you will. Like once they break it, they are broken. They are out of the picture. So I don't know that like that even when they look at it from that like cinematic, perspective, that it holds up. And I don't know who I was hearing talking about that, but there was something about that. I'm like, I don't know. You don't get to keep it after you break the rule. You have to give it to somebody else, whatever it is that you saved.
That's a super interesting point. That's a really interesting point. And I like that you're talking about it in those terms. That's the terms that they were talking about it in. And I think like to that point, they're almost ensuring that there will be no one to pass it off to, right? Because they're coding everyone in like with moral colors, based on just how offended they are essentially by Trump and by the Republicans, right? So it's like anyone who stayed true, right, who didn't break the rules or whatever, to them is morally tainted because they weren't aghast enough. So they don't even see anyone. They want to just pass it around amongst each other because they are the virtuous ones.
Yeah. I don't think it works that way. Even in the cinematic universe that they talk about. So
no. And I think when it comes to left versus lib infighting, I obviously side with the libs, and like I think that the leftists kind of overblow. The leftists like do just love to hate on the Democratic Party, like they're sort of agents against the party more than they are like the base or whatever the the targets for them.
Mm-hmm.
But they where they're sort of right is like the Democrats are unpopular, you know? And it's like, and what I think also pisses me off about this route that they're taking is like it comes with just completely washing their hands of any mistakes that may have been made from 2016 to now, right? In the last 10 years of politics.
Yeah.
Because they've convinced themselves again that like the grave danger is Trump and Trumpism and conservatives and Republicans and anyone who is not, you know, like actively trying to stop them. And so fuck, I lost my train of thought there. Democrats bad or whatever. Fuck, I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah. Sorry, do you have any thoughts while I try to think of where the hell I was going with that?
No, I'm not sure, but yeah, they don't seem to be seeing like what they have done to contribute to like the current situation, right? Like, yes, Trump bad and all those things, but it wasn't because that you guys were doing such a fucking stellar job that you lost so many people, and people who had always voted blue left and were pushed out. Like the party fucking ate itself, and
yes,
like, right. So
yes,
like this all contributed to it, and maybe not. Maybe it's not like that whole woke shit entirely pushed everybody out. It's like kind of hard to know exactly, but it certainly didn't do you any favors to like, you know, adopt policies that people, I don't know, that people loudly supported, but like quietly the majority was kind of like saying, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, thank you. You sort of made my point, maybe accidentally there, but right, the sort of lefties are sort of right about the unpopularity of Democrats, and so if the destinies in this conversation are only really even if their plan is successful of disenfranchising half the country, that I don't fucking even know if they would win then, you know, because they really like they do have issues within their own base, and I don't think they should be trying to pander to the crazies in their own base, but with the ICOMs, with the ICUMs, you know, the people who are like somewhere in the middle, or especially people like you said, Kay, who were turned off from the liberal side of the aisle, the Democratic side of the aisle, sometime in the last 10 years, and in order to frame this conversation as Republicans and conservatives being an existential threat to Western liberal democracy, they get to just sort of wash their hands of all of the problems that led their side. There's blame to go around, but they don't have to address any of the problems that led their side to failure and to distrust with the American public. And even with the woke thing, I know like woke is my favorite thing to bang on, and you know, cultural issues are what motivate me more than you know, some policies and whatever. But like, it's also too little to call it just like wokeism, and people are like, oh, you know, people left because they got yelled at by people on the internet, right? Or because they didn't want to be so politically correct. But I think it is deeper than that. And I'm projecting here from my own experience, but it wasn't just me. Yes, I got annoyed with the woke tactics. Once I stopped being woke, I got annoyed with the behavior of wokeism, the whininess and the cancellation and the political correctness, sure. But actually, I think what moved certain people, I think a lot of them who fall in this sort of ICOM, you know, center space, the sort of heterodox people, is realizing that wokeness is a worldview that you disagree with, right? So it's not just, yes, I do find a lot of this shit annoying, but I could like put aside annoying if I felt like they believed true things about the world. That's my ultimately, at the end of the day, problem with like even the policies of a lot of things on the left, is that I think their policies are premised on a world that doesn't exist, which is essentially a blank slate world.
Who are ICOMs?
I
don't want to look this up. I feel like it's just gonna.
Independents, centrists, undecideds, and moderates.
Okay. All right. It's an awful fucking.
No, I love it.
It's fucking terrible. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I love how I'm like can't use any of my basic words, but I can always remember the ICOM acronym on command. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if Zero Fucks made that up or if he's just the one that popularized it, but that's pretty cool that if you did make it up. But yeah, so all of that is just like I don't think these people are doing the Democrats really even any favors with this line of thinking. And it's almost like a huge distraction. Back to the childish thing, how it feels very immature. It's kind of like, okay, guys, I feel like I'm talking to the kids who are playing in the backyard and they're playing like make believe. Like, all right, let me know when you want to come back in then and like come to the adult table, right? Because assuming that we're not going to permanently disenfranchise or even temporarily disenfranchise a third to half of the country, how do you plan to be elected and win and change, change hearts and minds and change policies? Like, it feels like a huge distraction even, like it a way to not have to deal with like the hard work of governing.
Yes, it seems like this. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what it's distracting from. Maybe it's like not wanting to do the other type of work because that's like, not as sexy as talking about, saving democracy, because that's exactly kind of like what the media ecosphere like wants everything to be framed like, right? So it fits very well into that. Even if everybody recognizes how fucking awful and toxic all of the like hyperbolic languages, it just feeds right back into that, but I don't know how you get out of that. It's people are incentivized to talk like that, which is funny because I hear both Destiny and Hutch and everyone who's talking about this, like talking about like how the incentives are all fucked and the incentive structures are all messed up, and they are for especially when it comes to like how people are engaging online and this creating deeper like political divides and more polarization, and even within like mainstream media, but especially in alternative media and so on and so forth. So framing it in these like absolute terms, just, kind of fits right into this criticism.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and especially like when, again, just back to like not learning lessons. That 2024 was kind of all about, well, there's two things here. 2024 leading up to the election was kind of all about, it was another Trump bad. That was the campaign pitch. Trump bad, Trump fascist, Trump Hitler. And so on the one hand, it's like, this has already been tried. You guys literally just tried it, and not that long ago even. So like your memory shouldn't be that short. And so like that, I don't know what my second part there was, but like that, you sort of already tried that and it didn't work.
Yeah.
I don't know like why they believe it'll work this time. Although I do know why. It's because they believe that like the things that Trump has done that maybe you or I like don't love or would want to see done differently or would want, whatever.
Yeah.
They believe all of those things
have pushed people so far. Yeah.
Yeah. They see these things like pre-genocide, like ICE out in the streets is like step one of the genocide of brown people in this country. Yeah. And in a way like, I just don't know if normal people are reacting to these things in such a way. So they're kind of banking on the fact that normal people are just, it's actually maybe even more insulting. They think that normal people are so stupid, right? They have contempt for the voter, right? So they think that normal people are so stupid that they're not going to come to these conclusions of themselves. But also, normal people must be as emotionally dysregulated as I am right now. They must be as emotionally charged and upset by all of these things. So even if they don't know what the solution is, like, because they have the same sort of like emotional valence as me, then they'll listen to me, or I could, I'll be effective in getting my message across to them. And I just don't know where they get that confidence from.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
And I find it really disappointing.
It is like a very emotional, like the world. Lots of things seem to run, like, you know what I mean, are driven largely by emotion, but there's a lot of emotion to muster in a direction for a prolonged period of time. It doesn't quite seem sustainable like that. Like, there's a lot of attention to hold in a, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't know that, like, the way things work now, that you'd be able to hold that, like, you know what I mean? To have that much buy-in for that long to get it done, so. And I just think it's a bad idea. I just don't think I just think it's a bad idea also, right?
Yeah, so. No, I agreed. But it's a good point in two ways of, like, how much momentum you, like, there, even just from the midterms, we're far enough away out to hold that much like emotional salience, as you're saying. And that works in both directions, both for the voters that they are hoping are as worked up as them. And even for them, it's like they're going to burn out. Even just the lefties and libs talking about this conversation, they're going to burn themselves out, right? Or come to a point where it just becomes less believable. If everything's a 10, right, then you lose the ability to, like, properly gauge threat levels.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I don't know. And I guess, I don't know, if you told me, like, that it would work, I don't know, like, what's the trade-off? I don't know if the trade-off it would be worth it even. Like, what would the trade-off be? What kind of, what are you left with after? And work for how long? It's obviously not going to be forever. Nothing, can't do that. Like, that's not how things work, There's going to be a future where, like, none of us are alive, and, like, this isn't, it's going to be a fucking memory. So, like, I don't know. You have to, and no one's been able to really, like, articulate or seemingly rightly talk about the trade-off,
Yeah. Well, and I don't think the people on the left having this conversation see it as a trade-off. Like, I don't think they see themselves as giving up anything. In a way of, like, like, even in the most transparent way, like, they just don't seem to be concerned about any of the consequences here, which I don't really understand where that comes from. Even in the simplest way of, like, the filibuster, it's like they are sort of refusing to even look just, like, one step ahead of, like, okay, so you take away this thing to give yourselves more short-term power. And the Republicans are flirting with this idea too, and I think it's a bad idea, for the Republicans to do also. But, like, they don't even have, like, they don't even see the self-interested trade-offs of, like, what if I give this power? There's this newly unleashed power to the other side, right? And so, like, I don't. I've said this already as a problem that I see on the left is just, like, a lack of being willing to deal with trade-offs and incentive structures.
Yeah. I don't know. And they both seem to be on, like, both Destiny and Hutch seem to be good with getting rid of the filibuster, and if the Democrats have the ability to do so, I don't know that they would like that if it were turned the other way around, And I think like Republicans could technically do it now, but they haven't, right? So it's probably a good thing. Like the less kind of like, you know, the less like balances you have to like, you know what I mean, ensure like larger majority stuff. That doesn't seem good. Like this seems like, it seems like okay, it's gonna work in the short term, but like what the fuck are you doing? Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's a long term consequence of that. And I mean, you don't even like it the way things are now, right? So it's just, I don't know. And it's possible like I don't see the benefits the same way. Maybe there are more benefits than drawbacks, but I think it. Yeah, I mean, if you're worried about like checks on power, then I don't see how that helps.
Yeah, and someone brought up Jonathan Haidt in the chat, and like I don't have a specific reference to make here, but just like as in like a specific reference from Jonathan Haidt, but just his work on moral foundations and just sort of like understanding the psychological motivations for people with different personality types and therefore associated political dispositions. They don't seem to be taking that into account at all, really. And it goes back, I don't want to beat a dead horse because I said this in the beginning of what pisses me off so much, but they really do believe that like if we just like beat them down and yell at them and punish them enough, they will give up on their crusade. These things will like stop being important to them. And I think too, back to the idea of not thinking about the trade-offs or like what comes next. I think they're not thinking, ironically, for the left who loves the idea of like blowback and stuff, like I don't think they're really thinking about the blowback in that way. You know, it's like, what makes you think that the craziest people on the right are just gonna oh, well, I've been defeated. I guess I must stop now. I guess I was wrong. It's like they don't really seem to understand the motivation of their opposition, which makes you much less equipped to fight them.
Yes, I think the idea is that if they do this and are successful, that it would create so much fear about acting outside of these quote unquote normal bounds, right? That nobody would ever do that again, except in order to do that, you'd have to be acting outside the bounds,
the normal bounds, and then you give permission to the other side to act at least outside of those bounds that you broke, right?
Yes.
If they won't be willing to go further than that already. And then again, especially if you believe that the other side sincerely holds their beliefs and not that they cynically hold their beliefs or that they really just want to hurt people, you know, whatever, and these are just like treats and yum-yums for them, then then it gives you a better perspective. It's like what people would be willing to do, right, to fight for to make the world a better place, you know. Like if you can at least give that much charity to the other side, which is they also sincerely believe that they are making this country and the world a better place, then why would they give up on that? It's but theoretically just as important to them as it is to you.
But this is what I tend to hear is that okay, but just because there are two different views doesn't mean one view isn't more rooted in truth and reality than the other. So if they have the views that are, you know, less accurate, less true, and are based on delusion, then we don't need to be spending our time fighting against, you know, this is a waste of time and we should just stamp it out because it's, you know, of no value, and we shouldn't treat it like it is for real. That's what I hear, and I don't necessarily think that that's an accurate way to deal with it. That's like the refrain I tend to keep hearing.
Well, yeah, and that's again sort of like to me that's like classic left wing. Like, well, we are obviously right. They might think that very strongly, but they're obviously wrong. And again, it's that we are right morally and factually. And they don't even really leave open any room for doubt even. You know? Maybe I'm the baddie, you know, or maybe I like they just like they leave like really kind of no room for that. I love what Zero Fucks wrote. I'm always quoting Zero Fucks. He said, again, another Louis C.K. concept about road rage. Once you cut them off, they don't disappear. They are behind you now. That is what a perfect picture of what we're talking about here, right? Yeah, because it is let's say you cut them off, right? Let's say you guys are successful, right? And you do that. Why do they believe that the Republicans that they've now disenfranchised are going to just lay down and take it and apologize? They literally think they're going to apologize, you know? That's the thing that's so sick too about this. Like, and again, it's not just on the left. The right does this shit too. There's so many demented people on the right. But it is so condescending and just like dripping with contempt for the other side of like, yeah, you're just obviously wrong and you're going to have to learn this and you're going to deal with it and you're going to come to your, do they even think they'll come to senses? I don't know, but
but like, even if that's true, right? Even if it's true that like half the country's fucking dumb and wrong, well, maybe you don't like democracy then, because those dumb, wrong motherfuckers have a vote just like you do. And if you want to live in a country where the dumb motherfuckers don't get to vote, then maybe you shouldn't fight to save democracy. Maybe you should just hope like that your authoritarian leader is, you know, has enough charisma and money and fucking good messaging and rhetoric to come into power, and then you can do all the shit you want. But like, that doesn't seem like you want democracy, you know, at that point. And it's okay to not want democracy, but like, maybe you just need to reckon with that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and once again, though, what you just said is exactly the path that so many centrist, right of center, classically liberal types took right on out of liberalism. What you just laid out, right? Of like, maybe my issue is with democracy here, right? Because, you know, if I don't trust part of the population, if I don't think they're going to come to good conclusions, then maybe this system is not actually fit for purpose. Purpose being maintaining, you know, my way of life or whatever. That is the exact path, but in a different direction, kind of a different direction. Maybe the directions are sort of, you know, back to the horse thing. Maybe the directions are actually closer than we think. But that's exactly what happened on the right. Is all these people started non-democracy, non-liberalism became kind of sexy, right? And these people became disillusioned with what they saw as the system of liberalism allowing in all of these worst elements. And again, that's what people on the left are saying right now, you know, like Destiny, there's a fatal flaw in our system that someone like Donald Trump is able to come in and then regain power. And it's like, okay, well then you are the dissident left then. If the people on the right doing this are the dissident right, you are the dissident left. Which is different from the extremists and, you know, the far left and whatever and the tanky, but you also want some sort of revolution.
But this has been being seeded on both the left and the right for a very long time, and I don't think and I think the failure to really have seen that coming and to see like it reach a critical mass of the way it is now is something that, you know, hopefully democracy survives. People can see coming next time or learn from that, because it feels like people have truly abandoned their their love and appreciation for, you know what I mean, for living in a democracy or wanting it. You know what I mean? This seems to be a lot of disdain for. And this does not mean that like you don't hold the government to account and you know any of those things, but you have to balance it with like actually liking your country too.
Right.
Like if you hate your country and your government and only want to criticize it and will find nothing redeeming about it on either side, then, you know, and if the right's doing it from one angle and the left is doing it from another angle,
And
for
the
long
right
enough,
is,
there's going to be a convergence where there's not enough people to hold it up. And it kind of seems like you could be at a place. Yeah.
I hope the America haters lose on both sides of the aisle. It's such a good point. And I do think, like, I don't know how this civil war with many different factions on the right is going to turn out. I can only hope that it goes well, right? Because that's where I would like to be able to deliver my vote moving forward and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But fuck my fucking brain. But we don't know. Oh yeah, they're the people on the right. And again, right even is like not the most precise word for these people, but a lot of them also are just they are doing America bad, right? America bad, and also my fellow Americans bad, and whatever. And that is there's nothing to hold on to in there, and so I do, you know, the Dems should be. I know a lot of times, or oftentimes, it can come off insincere when they do the sort of patriotism thing, but like I do hope that the people who lean into that on either side of the aisle are the ones who are more successful, and I have to believe they will be, because at least there's some optimism. There's at least space for optimism, you know, when you're not like hating on your government. And I think the people, again, particularly on the right, and then it's just obvious on the left, the America bad people, I think people are really turned off by that, and I hope hope that can. By the people who are complaining,
the people who
like
hate
you said,
America?
And yes, right. They're complaining about the issues and they hate America. So it's not, it doesn't even feel like there's room to productively love your country, despite these things. And you know,
their
that
criticism comes from disdain as opposed to a desire to make the country better.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I hope both sides of that lose. But I don't see as much of the positive form of that on the left. But I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of blackpilling when you think about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's also blackpilling too. Like, so like, obviously I like Marco Rubio, and I'm like actually quite nervous and upset that he just recently like started taking over the polls as the most likely candidate, because
it's too early.
It's too early. Exactly. Like I just like so much can get fucked up and ruined from here. I really don't want it to be Vance, or certainly at this point in time, I don't want it to be Vance. But like even just seeing the reaction of a lot of people on the left about Marco Rubio is like, okay, so your issue is not just with the really crazy people on the right or whatever. Like Marco Rubio is a bog standard Republican. You don't have to love him. You don't have to like, maybe even before all of this, he's not someone that you would have voted for. But like, is he also a fascist? Because that's the language that a lot of these people are using, you know, or if they're not willing to call him a fascist, then they're doing the guilt by association with him. Like, well, he was willing to work for the Trump administration. And so, and they say that, right? No one who's been part of this administration should be able to ever serve in government again. And it's like, okay. Yeah. That seems dumb too, just in terms of transition and like stability of our institutions, that like literally anyone who was ever involved should not be allowed to serve again. That seems problematic, but yeah.
Like that wouldn't cause any problems or anything.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know, so. But
okay. Have we beat this into the ground? Do you have any other thoughts on it?
I think so. No. I think that's it. I just wanted to ask you, did you see Constantine posted something on Twitter, maybe somewhere else too, but like Warren, whatever his name is, who
Smith.
Warren, he does those like breakdown videos, whatever. I forget what
I don't like him, but I'll put an asterisk there.
Yeah, I understand. He gets on my nerves. He feels a little phony, a little like contrived, a little phony. But all to say, anyway, so he did a video on like, I guess Digital Gnosis was watching the Constantine and Destiny debate and was talking about like what he had learned about like how to assassinate people after watching the Charlie Kirk murder, and like was making like, I don't know, saying things and alluding to like wanting to kill Constantine or something to that effect. Anyways, and
wait, who was saying this?
This guy, Digital Gnosis, Nathan. So I'm gonna go. Anyway, so Constantine posted, Zero Fucks had like replied and posted the video in the replies. So I checked out that Warren's video where he's seeing this guy commenting on that debate. And it's interesting enough, this guy used to, I think his channel, I think he took it down. It's called Digital Gnosis. His name was Nathan. I had seen him before and I used to watch him because he was on Peter Boghossian's channel a couple years ago. He did a street epistemology with Billboard Chris. And then like not too long after that, he had like a heated back and forth with like Peter, because he like was accusing Peter of never talking to like real leftists and not get, that whole thing that constantly gets leveled at him. But I guess it kind of like his reaction after Warren posted that video kind of blew up, and it was like a bit of a kerfuffle, if you will. But it's just like wild that he's sitting there reacting to the fucking debate on his channel, being like, yeah, we should like, I don't know, like you have to make sure if you're going to kill them that it's not gory, because you don't want to like engender too much like sympathy. Or it was like, yeah,
on YouTube.
Yes. And then I guess he like I don't know if he took that video or took his channel down or whatever. I think he had posted something on Substack. Zero Fucks had posted. And I took a look at that. But I was just like, wow. Because I had watched him for a bit and he was like unhinged. But this was like a couple years ago. But it wasn't to that degree. Fucking, you're muted.
That's quite disturbing. I'm going to have to like look into this. But just especially because like, and not to be dramatic. You know how the right is constantly saying like they want to kill us?
Yes, Warren Smith. Yes. I'm sorry, yeah.
The right is always, the people, or some crazies, especially on the right, are always saying, the people who do the like no enemies to my right, I can't call out anyone on the right because the left is my enemy. Their mantra is they want to kill us. They want to kill us. And you telling me that story is the first time that I ever felt the urge to say that, or like felt what that feels like. Because to have that reaction to Constantine kissing,
I know.
That's real. That's actually disturbing to me. Like, cause I align very, I like, I think I've said this already too, so I don't want to be so redundant, but that's who's that's the extremist who's triggering you to Fed post is Constantine kissing. That's really disturbing. I'm like, oh shit, they do want to kill us.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
Yes. And it was in the debate that he had with Destiny that he was reacting to. And like, there's many criticisms that you could make of Constantine, but he was not even particularly like inflammatory there.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it was not.
If anything, he was ineffective in even getting the point across.
Ways, yes, I would.
He barely made any strong claims.
Yes. So it was just like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Crazy.
It just looked like fucking went off the fucking rails, right? So yeah.
Like Bud said, Brett Cooper and Matt Walsh engage in this practice. They don't criticize people's ideas on the far right. Exactly. And that's their whole thing is enemies to the right. We can't do infighting, they call it, because their enemy is the left. And that's, by the way, that's the Pisco line. That's the equivalent of that on the left, right? Is we all need to be working together. The enemy. This is why everyone was shitting on Hutch for so long, and they still do. Hutch, you know, the split of your time is not adequately split between you know, shitting on Republicans and shitting on leftists because the Republicans are our enemy.
Yeah. And I'm not like
even using the word enemy.
Matt Walsh or Brett Cooper by any means. I've seen Brett, and she's like, you know, she's young, and I don't have any I didn't have any issue with her, if you will, but like her content's a little like on the immature side for me, if you will. It's hard to take being talked seriously to by like a 20-year-old sometimes. It just is, for better or worse, whatever that makes me, you know. But once she started saying that and coming out with some other takes, I'm like, ooh, you know, maybe like being in the hug box of the Daily Wire was good for you for a bit, because it kind of like, you know what I mean? Like you had some guardrails on you that you seem to, and this has happened to many people, that seem to have been maybe a bit of a benefit, like, you know, but also maybe it's good to just see people for exactly what their beliefs are.
Yeah.
So, were you wanting to talk about what the Zionism, anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism, what's going on there?
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe I'll just say a couple sentences and then stop, and then we'll just see, I guess, if it sparks a whole conversation. But basically, this is a point that I've made before, but it was like made more clear to me very recently or whatever. But I've made the argument before in explicitly Jewish spaces, and it's always been met with a lot of pushback, that we should essentially stop using the word Zionist, because I don't think it means anything. It's like, even if we take it in its like closest to truest meaning, Zionism was a movement and a successful one.
Yeah.
And in to that extent, it's over. And essentially my thesis is just that Zionist is just a slur. And Zionism is just a slur. It's essentially, in 2026, Zionism and Zionist is a slur that people who care enough about it are willing to reclaim in that way. But like it gives you no information, right? You have people who call themselves anti-Zionists who will say they're for a two-state solution, right? Which like functionally, by any definition, that would literally make them a Zionist, because essentially all Zionist means is like you don't want to destroy Israel. You believe that it is like okay for Israel to continue to exist as a Jewish state in some form or fashion. And in this Tim Miller conversation with Sagar, Tim like brings up Zionist being used as a slur and like the, you know, just like conspiratorial anti-Semites, and Sagar is pushing back vociferously. And specifically he pushed back on that Zionism or Zionist could ever be used as a slur. And he's like, well, it's not a slur because Zionism is a thing. Like a Zionist, it's a thing. And funny enough, he was like tripping over it, even saying it. He kept saying it's a thing. Like he wasn't even saying it's an ideology or a movement. You know, he was like, it's a thing. And then in his description of it, he says it's the people who want to expand the state of Israel. And so even then he's like using this deceptive definition that is obviously not even the way that most people would self-identify. But someone said this in Kalinda's chat yesterday, and like Kalinda like reacted negatively to it, but I kind of agreed, which is like there's almost no such thing as Zionism. Like anti-Zionism is a discernible modern ideology and movement way more than Zionism is. Zionism is essentially Jews with an affinity towards Israel, and then people who like won't condemn Israel. And again, some of these people will wear the label almost akin to reclaiming a slur. Other people will push back on the label for good and understandable reasons, like just normies who are like, yeah, I think Israel's fine. I wish they had a different government right now, but of course I don't want to tear it down. Those people are called Zionists, and they will reject that label. But yeah, I just think like it brings no clarity. If words are supposed to like help us to communicate, the word Zionism does not help us do that at all. It like muddies communication. And I think it's all the more salient now because Zionist is only a slur, basically. Like, obviously there are exceptions, but it's hard to really see how like any of those exceptions apply to people who are anti-Zionist. Like, yeah, the exceptions are like when people who call themselves Zionists, right? They're not using it as a slur or whatever. But basically anybody who considers themselves to be anti-Zionist is using it as a slur. And they don't care what the person's ideology is, who they're calling that. I'll stop there, and I don't really have a solution, but that's maddening to me.
It is, because I could see how there could be how it could be very well true that it can't be like rehabilitated in any way. Do you know what I mean? Or made to even be neutral or an accurate word, right?
But does it even have any utility? Like, why do we even need the word at all? It like doesn't represent anything today. Like it just actually doesn't mean like, so sure, there's like could we get it back? Could we de-slurify it?
Mm-hmm.
What's it even meant to connote?
I think among people who identify with it, it would just be like a way of saying like that you believe that the country shouldn't be
eradicated, basically.
Yes.
Which I don't think we should put a word to that. No other country, nation, people would ever have a word to mean essentially don't destroy us or our land, because that is it gives an out. Like it gives
yes, I understand what you mean.
For lack of better terms. Yeah, it gives them a way to just weasel around what they mean, basically. It's like we're just handing them a slur. So and this is where I face
by having the word exist, instead of saying we want to destroy the country of Israel and displace all of the Jewish people, they just get to say fuck Zionism. So they don't have to make the full argument. They get a shorthand to make it, and that shorthand is much more easily swallowed because
totally
kind of like it can be like a Mont Bailey. It could be a little bit weaselly. Maybe some people think it means this, or some people make it think that. So you don't have to actually make the argument.
Easier to It's easier to swallow on both sides, right? The left, can say, right, obviously you could be against Zionism. Zionism is a form of nationalism, and it's colonialism, and it's imperialism. It's obviously imperialism.
And that's not what people mean when they're fucking saying it, though. No,
right. And then the people on the right can do the same thing. Obviously, you can criticize Zionism because Zionism is an ideology, and you should be able to criticize any ideology. The people on the right will say, just like I can criticize Islam, and there's like, there's truth to those things. Obviously, I agree. Everyone needs to and should be able to criticize all of these things. But that's not what they're doing when they're criticizing Zion.
They're not making the arguments, and they're being let out of like making the actual case for it, because they can say it and hide behind that.
Yes, this is why there's a push within the Jewish community to spell anti-Zionism without a hyphen, which, listen, it's going to be a long time till people catch up with that, because they're still spelling anti-Semitism with the hyphen, right? But the same thing, the rationale is the same for both of them. And by the way, those are things that I quickly adopted. I started spelling anti-Semitism without a hyphen a long time ago. And same now, I've been more diligent in spelling anti-Zionism without a hyphen. The point they're trying to make with that is that this is not anti-Semitism, and anti-Zionism are not dispositions or ideologies that are against Zionism or Semitism. They are against the what they have created as the Jew or the Zionist in their mind.
Yeah.
It bears almost no resemblance to what people in the real world who call themselves a Zionist or a Jew, whatever, are or think about themselves or believe or want. And so it's like, yeah, we're giving them this huge gift that is not true. We're helping them with the big lie in a way, you know, like, and it's not necessarily a conscious lie. People believe that they hate Zionism, this evil movement thing, whatever, and they don't hate Jews and this and that. But yeah, we're just giving that to them when it's not even true. Like, we're allowing people, including the anti-Zionists, to believe that they are righteously and rightly fighting an evil ideology when they're not. Zionism is not a modern ideology that anyone is fighting.
Yeah. So then what needs to happen is when people say, you know, they are anti-Zionist or fuck Zionist, whatever, then we must, you know, demand, like, what does that mean exactly? They need to spell out what that position is, because then you have to pretend like you have to pretend like that word is like gibberish, because essentially it is, right? So you've said something that makes no sense. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? And then you have to explain what that position means, like fully, as if, like, you know, like I'm a fucking 5-year-old.
Yes.
And that just has to happen over and over and over and over again.
Well,
and not accept the word anti-Zionism, you know,
or at least not accept the word right. No, yes, and exactly. And I've thought about all this a lot more since, but the first time that I came to that conclusion that you're saying was exactly the way that you just described it. Was basically, it was functional. Like, when in calling me a Zionist gets to shut down the conversation, you know? So if I can say, I don't identify as a Zionist, you know, it then forces them to at least use other language. And for some of them, the other language is Israeli or Jew, you know, or whatever, or Israeli sympathizer or Jew lover, you know, like, and so you kind of let the ugly come to the front a little more. Exactly. And if for the people who it's not ugly, who have good intentions and think that they're essentially just like fighting for the rights of marginalized people, then they're forced to explicate more clearly, right, what they're actually talking about. So again, it's like there's no movement to stop using the word Zionism or Zionist, right? And every time I've brought it up, I've been met with pushback. And part of the pushback is like, by doing that, by dropping the term, we're letting them win. We are allowing, you know, the people who stand against us to dictate our language and, you know, and it's like, okay, I get it. But like, then my brain just goes is versus ought. Like, okay, so Jews ought to be able to, every group ought to be able to, you know, use the words to define themselves. And in reality, is that this is a slur against us, and it disqualifies us preemptively from walking in the room and having certain conversations. If you're labeled as a Zionist, you're seen as non-credible in a lot of the conversations. So, but I
mean, we could teach people to, like, you could use it in, like, I don't know, company of like-minded people, if that's an important word for your self-understanding. Okay, but when you're out there having these conversations, or, you know, out in the world, that might not be something you want to do, you know, outside of, you know, like, your own private space, because there are different ways I speak at home than I speak in the world, right? So that might be something you keep for home, at least for now. And that could be something, I don't think that's like an impossible thing to, like, teach people, you know what I mean? It'd be nice if it doesn't have to be, but yes, exactly, is versus ought. Like, we live in a world, and it would be nice, but, like, you know, factually, it's not there right now.
Yeah, and I think too, like, it really is that we've just reclaimed a slur. The problem with that is, like, chronologically, there wasn't really a break in time between like when people were self-identifying with this term and when it started being used. That's the problem, I guess, is that it did start with self-identification as opposed to others like the N-word and that being reclaimed, right? So it's different, although it's different in that way, in that it did start as like a self-identifier or whatever, as a coherent ideology that people who believed in it, right, could label themselves with. But it is just a slur today to the extent that like most Jews, including in Israel, really, like aren't taught Zionism. They're taught like Jewish history and Israeli history, right? And like I didn't even use the word Zionist until probably like 11, 12 years ago when I was like in Israel. And that was the first time that like the word was really given to me. But I had all of my same affinities for Jewish life and culture in Israel before that word was given to me. And there's a bit of a generational divide in Israel too, of people who use the term Zionist. And like not everyone does, right? Because again, I'm just Israeli, basically, you know, like they don't see the need for this term Zionist. And so I really do think like most of the people who are using it today are knowingly or unknowingly just reclaiming this slur. They don't want it to be tainted. They don't like the way that the non-Jewish world has like created a boogeyman out of this. But yeah, sorry, I'm circling back to just being redundant, but it doesn't communicate any valuable information. And in fact, I think it allows people to hide in conversations.
Yes, I see how that can happen. Chipinga is asking, I feel really out of place here, but how is this different from the ignorance meme political actors use to avoid engaging? I'm not 100% sure. Do you mean like how is people using Zionism as like
wrong or whatever? Like using it incorrectly from our view? How is that different?
Or like is it catch-all? Like so they I'm not entirely sure. But maybe if you could ask it a little bit.
I think what you're saying, Chipinga, you could correct me if I'm wrong, is like how is this different from the there's like the meme of like left-wing discourse is just like people pretending not to understand what words mean or something. Like I think you're saying like how is this so different from that, where people like intentionally use certain language or whatever to obfuscate
he's the saying point. You got it.
Okay. It's not, well, I think the way that it's different, maybe it's not different for some of those people. So like the people that Kay and I are talking about who they know that they're using it as a more socially acceptable slur or something. They know they shouldn't say Jew, right? And so like saying Zionist is like more socially acceptable. So for those people, it's not so different. But I think unfortunately for a lot of people, it's like totally, well, they do believe that that it is a coherent ideology that they're fighting against. So maybe the difference is that like unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people who are not like bad actors necessarily. You don't need to have like that. You don't need to be intentionally trying to obfuscate and confuse. So maybe that's the difference. I don't know how clear my response was just now, but
yeah. And some people use like the whole Zionist thing to mean like Jew, right? And wanting the destruction of Israel. And some people use this like we have to fight the Zionists, like this evil Zionist ideology that they hear about, which is like really just conspiracy theories about Jews. Like, even if they don't realize it, usually, you know. But they think that there's something actually uniquely worth fighting there that there isn't somewhere else. So it just ends up being unhelpful all the way around.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting.
Yeah. And I feel there's something interesting. I've brought this gentleman up before, but there's like a new activist on the scene of like fighting Jewish hatred. This guy, Adam Louis Klein, and he's this sociologist, I believe. He's like a left-wing guy. He studies like indigeneity, and he was following this like group in the Amazon when October 7th happened. So he was like literally living in the Amazon, disconnected, didn't have, he would have to like go to like sort of base camp to use his phone or computer once a week or whatever. And he finds out about October 7th, like a day or two
like
after.
way after, yeah. Or not
right, a couple days after, and he like posts something in support and like immediately gets this pushback and gets iced out of his like academic and left-wing social circles. And he has basically started the movement against anti-Zionism. And his idea, which I like, is like he wants to flip the frame. Ironically, it's very similar to the lefties in this space too, right? They want to control the frame. And so he's like, we need to turn it back. We Jews, we need to stop turning out our pockets when we're accused of these libels and whatever. Instead of trying to justify and explain why it's wrong or how we're innocent, we need to push it back on them and say, you're part of the hate movement, whatever. And a lot of what he's doing, I think, has some value. I think it's limited in its efficaciousness. Well, very limited, because it's targeted towards the left insofar as he uses concepts of indigeneity, and colonialism and all of this stuff. So that leaves out half the population that doesn't buy into those sort of things. And unfortunately, even among the population that you're trying to target, those people just think you're evil. So they're not even really willing to listen to you. But all that to say, so I think he's a really interesting guy on the scene. But one of the most interesting things that he does is that he fights anti-Zionism. That's his whole thing. He's not really interested in fighting anti-Semitism. He's in fact, like, his whole thing is like, we need to stop trying to prove how anti-Zionism is really anti-Semitism. He's like, because sometimes they are just very different. Anti-Semitism, is this specific kind of hatred that comes out of, comes out of Germany, in the late 1800s, and it's not. And anti-Zionism often doesn't look like that, right? And so his whole point is like, anti-Zionism is bad enough. It's a hate movement on its own. We don't need to prove that it's like this other thing. Sorry, long-winded all to say. This man spends all day fighting anti-Zionism and almost no time talking about Zionism, which I think really drives home the point that like anti-Zionists are not attacking Zionism as some coherent ideology or people who are super bought into some prescription about expansion or something like that. And so that is really interesting how you can like so the proof is in the pudding there a little bit, right? That he can spend all this time going over the genealogy of this movement, of where do these tropes and talking points and whatever come from. And you can do all of this without ever even really having to engage with what Zionism is, because they are so disconnected, that because anti-Zionism is not actually fighting Zionism. Sorry, that was really long-winded there, which is par for the course for me.
Yeah. And I think Tripping said, but it's a coherent idea, even if it points to something that's incoherent, like Santa Claus, for example. I think so, but it's also not very useful, because it was about like Israel existing, and it exists now. So does it need,
right.
It doesn't necessarily, it happened. So I don't know that we need to keep talking about, it doesn't have there's no utility in it, I suppose, anymore.
It's sort of like walking around in 2026 and saying, I'm against suffrage. No, that hides the ball. You want to revoke the right for women to vote, right? Women have the right to vote. There was a movement to enfranchise women. Now they have it. To say in 2026 that you're against suffrage, you're against the movement to enfranchise females, no, it doesn't make any sense. You want to tear down this thing that exists. And I think we need that same clarity with Zionism. You're not anti-Zionism. You want the abolition of the Jewish state. You don't think that Israel should exist the way that it does today, essentially, right? You're not against the movement towards, it already exists. That analogy just came to me now of like suffrage and Zionism. I hope that's a potent analogy. I might try to workshop that a little bit. But that's sort of the point, right? You're hiding the ball. Oh, I'm against suffrage. I'm against some political movement. No, you don't think women should vote. And when you say it in those words, it's a lot less palatable, right? You don't think Jews should have access to their homeland. That's a lot less palatable than saying, I'm against the oppressive nature of Zionism or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Christian Valeris said, how do you distinguish the bad actors, especially among the left? This seems like a left-wing problem to right-wingers use Zionist as a slur, because that's not my experience. They have started to. They just like have obviously started to, right? I mean, you can look at the way that like Tucker Carlson talks about Zionists, including Christian Zionists and stuff like that, right? So this is totally a left-wing thing. I mean, anti-Zionism literally comes. This is old KGB propaganda. This is literally being pumped out of the Soviet Union. It's communism, literally. So it's a left-wing phenomenon. But yes, there are people on the right who use it as a slur. And let's use Sagar and Jetty as an example. One of the things that also is frustrating about this, but is important about highlighting that the difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism and not trying to collapse them, is because a ton of anti-Zionists who fully discriminate against Jews and are hostile against Jews because of their anti-Zionism can and will say, and likely truthfully, I don't hate Jews. So Sagar and Jetty, while he's fighting with Tim Miller and saying Zionists can never be used as a slur, basically, because it's a real ideology that we're allowed to fight, he gives the preamble of anti-Semitism is disgusting, morally, it's bad, it's wrong, I hate it, I disavow. So it's very easy to just, do that, right? And the difference on the right is you have, especially in the sort of right that we're swimming in right now, where people have been really emboldened to sort of vice signal. So you have the people like Nick Fuentes and whatever, who it's like funny to them to not say Zionist and just say Jew and all of that. But still, there are people on the right who are not willing to, they're not willing to concede to being a bigot, but also they sincerely don't view themselves that way. By the way, here's another issue with anti-Semitism. Almost no Jew haters conceive of themselves as hating Jews. They conceive of themselves as hating something about the Jew, and maybe they could try to change it, right? Anti-Semitism, I posted this today, but anti-Semitism always feels right and righteous and virtuous, right? Because if you believe that the Jews or Israel is standing in between you and a more perfect world, a more just world, a more free world, a less oppressive world, then total fixation and obsession on Jews and the Jewish state just logically follows. It's like the natural consequence of believing such a thing. So yes, I do think this is largely a left-wing issue, but the right is adopting it, is totally adopting it too. And ironically, so is anti-Zionism a left-wing issue predominantly? Yes, absolutely. And also, where does the term Zio as a slur first come from? David Duke. And it'd be really hard to argue that he's on the left. So it is a problem of both sides in different ways to different extents. That was another long answer, but
yeah. It is just, I don't know. It is just blown up so much. And I I don't remember ever talking about this shit so much or having it, you know what I mean, be so prevalent. It is like fucking exhausting sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know how people get so wrapped up in it. It's like seriously deranging to.
It is. I'm just going to use that exact word.
It's just like
it seems to be
and I think it's like also because like being a Jew, right? So that there's like nothing particularly like weird or special or unique about Jews because you are one. So it's just like what
it feels
it's so weird. Yeah.
It's bringing a picture to mind for me of like a pinball machine, like when you're playing pinball and like every once in a while it catches. And so it's just fucking smacking and you're not doing anything even at that point, right? Like you've had to stop. You're not even pressing the buttons on the side because it's just hitting and it's going so fast that it's self-generating at this point. You know what I mean? Like, and that does seem to be the process. People who go down this rabbit hole, I mean, it just escalates. And not to bring up P.F. Young again, and the irony of P.F. Young is that he believes that he's immune to Jew hatred, deranging Jew hatred, because he claims to have seen anti-Semites in his life. And I believe that. And so maybe there are people more deranged than him in his life. But
yes.
just the idea of just how deranging this is and how totalizing it is. As anti-Zionism is a totalizing ideology. It is a little bit of an irony there too. It colonizes the minds of people. But Paul started off by, if you guys remember, if anyone was like a Paul fan, he was doing his like normal content when I was still a fan and everything was good. And then he just was saying Zog. And he was at the time saying, this is a joke. I'm saying it to be funny. I'm saying it to be edgy. And then he went from, well, I'm saying it to take away the slur power from the people who are using it poorly. And I remember even when he was just dropping it a little bit, he was getting some pushback. And that's when JJ McCullough called him out explicitly for it and was like, I think you're headed down sort of a bad road here. And Paul did a couple of videos about it, of like addressing the fact that he had been using the word. And he's gone from like, in every other conversation, jokingly using the term Zog, to Israel is at the bottom of every problem that he sees. Israel and Judaism is at the bottom of every problem that he sees now. He can't go through a single conversation or even like half a conversation without bringing up Israel and Zionism. It is deranging. It is totalizing.
Yes.
It takes over the mind of otherwise good people.
Yeah, and there's something like kind of sad about people who think they've like finally tapped into some like deep truth about the world, who think they're like saying things or seeing things that like people in power want to hide, and they think they've figured something out, and they think they're like seeing the corrupt power structures, and it's like in reality they've adopted the most controlled opposition brain rot that has been like pumped like to them specifically through like to adopt these stances, and everything that they're coming to see and they're coming to believe has been fed to them, and they are like ultimately manipulated in ways that they cannot see. And there's something kind of sad about it, but there's also something like a little funny about it too. When you can see it,
well,
right?
Gotta laugh.
Because I have to fucking laugh at it, but it's something to behold, you know?
Yeah, totally. Okay. Do you have anything else? I gotta wrap up shortly.
No. It's getting late here, so we can wrap up if you gotta go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good chat, Kay. Good chat. I appreciate how active you guys are typing in there. I also appreciate that you guys largely come from the same community too, so you all know each other. So the beginning of the conversation, you guys are just like talking about like lifting weights and shit and working out, and it's great. You guys can like have your own little conversation next 2 hours or whatever. I'm losing my words again, but yeah. Okay, this was lovely.
Yes,
talk
you guys like
soon.
Like yes, hopefully we'll be in touch. We'll set something up soon. If you can like the video, that's a good thing to do. That's what I'm supposed to say.
Like the stream.
And we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a good one.